Welcome to Livzenastrology, the channel for updates and reflections, where we are grounded in the stars and elevated by consciousness. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Yvette Watts, and I am your host for Livzenastrology podcast. Podcast just getting started, talking about all things astrological and through our inner gnosis and our divine connection to spirit. We are here to engage in cosmic energies and talk about all things mystical. And I am so grateful today to have an honored guest that I'm excited to get to know and meet further. His name is Aven Fleck. Aven is through 20 years of study within astrology. Aven has incorporated the usage of the zodiacal components into his understanding of tarot. Whilst in his study, he has further discovered a blend of science and mysticism on a multidimensional field. This curates a dynamic reading style as it combines the analytic aspects of with intuitive channels of innerstanding. I love that you use innerstanding. Through his dedication, he has devoted his attention to creating an accessible understanding of the incorporeal, astrology, and anchoring into our physical world. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Incorporeal? Is that right?
Incorporeal. Yeah, incorporeal.
Incorporeal. The studies that predominantly excite him relate to the Golden Dawn, Vedic and Western Astrology, Kabbalah, ceremonial work with plant and fungi medicine, as well as various indigenous cultures. In the corporeal world, you'll often find Aven with his young son living in Central Florida, working from home, playing in his garden, or nosing a book in one of his favorite many large bookshelves. Thank you so much, Aven, for being on the podcast today. Thank you for sharing your energy. I'm very excited to get to know you more and to get to explore this concept of how astrology and the tarot is connected. And I see you have other aspects that you work with as far as the Kabbalah and different forms of study. So let's just dive in. Let's just get into the meat and potatoes of this. How did you get started with this study?
So thank you so much for having me on here. My study started when I was like 13 years old, and I found myself in a really weird situation of life where obviously there was so much more going on than what anybody near me could help me understand, and I was perceptive to it. So naturally, I started diving deeper and got pulled into different magical worlds, got a book about animal magic, and then that quickly started getting me into like ritual practice, which next thing you know, I have to learn about planets, because ritual practice, like color coordination, planets, what's going on in the sky. And then this most taboo thought came to mind, like, oh, what if I bought a tarot deck? And it was like the most taboo thing I could think of at the time, because like everybody else is like, tarot, blah, blah, bad, oh my gosh. And then I researched tarot, and it's like, you can't buy your own deck. You have to get it purchased or given to you. And I'm like, oh, whatever, I'm going to go buy my own deck. So I decided at age 13 to start going down this path. And then there's been a couple periods of time here and there over the last 20 years where I've decided to take like a 6 or 9 month break from it and just like cleanse my space of any deep diving, any esoteric research, and just gone straight into what's present, what's here, how has everything I've been learning actually, how does it apply here? And so, yeah, little did I know I'd be diving into Kabbalah and things like that at that moment, because I was just doing the taboo tarot and learning the stars, and it just kept going, and here we are now. So I love what tarot and astrology do together.
Tell us more about that. How did you interweave? How did you find out that they're interweaving? Because I've from my experience just studying astrology, and I haven't deep dived as much into tarot, which I'm very excited about, and I'm drawn to that because I feel like it's so intimately connected. How did you figure out, or within yourself, weave these two divinations and as well as the Kabbalah and other modalities together? How did that start integrating for you after 13?
So I started noticing my first deck that I purchased was an animals totem deck. Didn't really apply to the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but in order to learn tarot, I had to get more familiar with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And the Rider-Waite-Smith deck has a lot of obvious symbolism. On the Empress card, there's a glyph of Venus. The Strength card is a lion, etc. And it just keeps going down that route. So I started looking into the symbolism of it and figuring out what these symbols were. And then my brain started putting things together like, holy cows, there's a planet for each card, there's a sign for each card. Okay, I can't just be halfway learning this. I need to actually learn this now. So I started purchasing books about it. And probably in the last 7 or 8 years was when I decided to really go the full length of it and learn every single detail that I could find about everything astrology in tarot. And it progressed into learning that the minor arcana cards, the 2s through the 10s of each suit, are all attributed a sign and a planet. And when that happened, oh my gosh, my brain was just like, wait up, what? So there's this natural progression, 1 through 10 of cups, 1 through 10 of wands, but then there's a zodiacal progression, and it's 2, 3, 4 wands, 5, 6, 7 pentacles, 8, 9, 10 swords, 2, 3, 4 cups, and it goes through the whole decanic wheel, starting with Aries and attributing the first planet, and then continuing. As soon as I realized that was a thing, like it was like, okay, this is my new like obsession, because not only do I have, like, we'll take like the 3 of swords is the card that I pulled for this. So 3 of swords, you have the energy of 3, you have the energy of the mind. So Empress energy 3 with the sword suit, mind. So being a creator, value, worth, self-worth of the mind. So it's a lot of mental recalibration. That's just like a numerology, as well as attributing it towards the major arcana. Now, looking at it in the decanic wheel, the zodiacal progression, we are in the sign of Libra, and the planet that it's attributed is Saturn. So Saturn being of mastery and Libra being of balance, relationships, diplomacy. There's also karma involved here. So you're learning like the karma of relationships, the balance of a relationship, how to master what it means to have interaction with another person. But it's all in the mental plane, which is interesting because we often think of relationships as an emotional space, but all of our brain perceives everything in reality as an emotion and then processes it into a mental construct. So everything starts emotionally in the brain. So Saturn is like helping us master that process. It's not necessarily trying to change the emotion. It's focused on how do we bring balance to the process of the emotion itself. So that's just one aspect of the decanic wheel. Now you have the card of Saturn and the card of Libra, which is justice and the world. So now you have those 2 cards as well from the major arcana. So if you look at justice, obviously justice, karma, balance, and the world is also about endings, reaching a fulfillment, completion, mastery. It's a portal. So in another way, this heartbreaking card, the 3 of swords, is a portal through relationships. One ending is an opening. One ending is it's like something is coming to a complete closure, but it's this mastery of it, which is opening a portal for you to experience a whole new level of emotional engagement by processing it in a more balanced and harmonized way.
Wow.
So
I love how, I mean, how do you integrate this when you do a reading? And I know that we talked about a little bit before the podcast today that you're more of a teacher. How do you teach people to connect to the tarot and astrology in this way? What do you share with people as you're helping people that are interested in learning to navigate? Because it seems so complex. It's like, how do you begin? How do you show that to someone?
you start with the basics. You start with the major arcanas. You have to. When the major arcanas are understood and you have the full through the world, that's comprehended, the attributions of the planets, the attributions of the signs, the elemental components. When all of that is secondhand and it's just in there, then you can start to explore the minor arcana cards. Interestingly enough, like we don't really get into the court cards until long after. So what I do with the minor arcana cards is I also start to integrate and teach Kabbalah, because in Kabbalah there's the 10 spheres, and the 10 spheres have a progression of planets, which are the same progression that we move through the decans. So it goes, we start with Aries 1, the 2 of wands, Mars, and then Sun, and then Venus, and then we move into Mercury, and then after Mercury we go into the moon, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, and etc. And it just keeps repeating. So there's a 7-planet progression that once you understand that rhythm, you can look through the decanic wheel anywhere. And even if you like forget the exact planetary attribution, but maybe you know another card that's nearby or another decan that's nearby, you can be like, oh wait, that's yeah, that's right, that's Saturn and Libra. So after Saturn, and then you just move through that progression. Jupiter, oh yeah, this is Mars. So the 5 of Cups is Mars in Scorpio. Okay. So it's like creating a way that you can kind of troubleshoot or analytically move into that space again. The whole point of having the major arcana done and taken care of ahead of time is so that that's never a questionable thing, but you can explore the decans and consistently reinterpret them over and over again because they're going to evolve over and over and over again. That's why there's so many different ways to interpret each card. It's there like a multi-dimensional open book. As soon as you open it, you're like, wait, there's not just one page. It's like, okay, where is my intuition drawing me? And you've created this library of this database. You have all these resources, you have all these reference points. That's the whole point, is creating the library. You're not trying to know every detail of the library. You just have access to every book in the library. And then you use your intuition to decide what book is it you're pulling from for this reading. So that's how I teach it. I bring both the practical, this is the science of it, this is what happens when it's here. And then I bring the intuitive part, say, there's a reason I'm looking at it this way. There's a reason I'm drawn to this symbol on the card. There's a reason I thought of Venus when the card showed up. You know, bringing those two, marrying them together, and having a perfect harmony between both parts of being.
What are the decans in astrology when you make
So the
reference to them?
Okay, so the decans, the sky is a circle, right? Based in astrology, we look at a circle, it's 360 degrees. Deca is 10. So a decan is a 10-degree segment. Okay. So each sign is 30 degrees and it has 3 10-degree segments. So essentially it has 3 phases of each sign. So the first phase of a sign, starting with Aries, would be Mars in Aries. And then the second would be the Sun in Aries. And the third decan would be Venus in Aries. So what you're looking at is it's always Aries energy, right? But there's Aries with Mars energy, then there's Aries with Sun energy, and then there's Aries with Venus energy. So the cards that come out through there are just helping you pinpoint what particular expression of Aries am I looking at right now. So you have 2 of Wands being the orb of dominion, the Mars in Aries. I mean, come on, we know Mars loves being in Aries. It's very much so about what I do, what I'm choosing, my thing that I'm experiencing right now. It's the world is mine kind of feeling, right? The Sun in Aries is more so about being expressive and being like out and wild and just like letting everybody know, hey, I'm here. You know, things are changing, people are seeing me, people are coming to me. The sun is a very bright luminary body in the sky, it's the brightest. So everybody sees that second decan of Aries more than they see the first and the third because the sun is there. So if you want to know which of the 3 decans gets the most attention, you know, wherever the sun is always going to be the one that gets the most attention. And then the third decan being with Venus, well, Venus is about beauty, also magnetism and attraction. So it still has those qualities that the sun has, but it has it from a different way because Venus knows how to pull things in and being a magnet of attraction versus the sun is just radiating out and people are like, whoa, what a bright light. I want to go check out that bright light. So Venus has more of a specific attraction and the sun has more of just like a radiance in all directions. So you get to see these different expressions of Aries based on the 10-degree segments of the sky, and the tarot just helps you understand that more thoroughly.
Oh, and do the decans always follow us the same pattern? Is it always going to be the same components there?
There's a couple different systems. Okay, the system that I use comes from traditional Golden Dawn, and that system is integrated with Kabbalah. There is another system that uses, instead of doing the 7-planet pattern, instead they just do the 3 planets associated with fire and they alternate the orders for each fire sign. And then they have the 3 planets associated with earth, and then they alternate those planets for each earth sign. So that is a totally different system, and I don't actually teach that system because it's separate from Kabbalah and it's separate from everything else that I practice. So it doesn't really fit in. But there is just as much extensive research in that school of thought that you can dive down that rabbit hole. And have similar results. So for instance, instead of having Venus, you would have Mars, Sun, and Jupiter in Aries, Mars, Sun, and Jupiter in Leo, Mars, Sun, and Jupiter in Sagittarius. So you would have those three planets and they would just alternate. You would never get outside of those fiery planets in 3 fire signs. So that's a totally different school of thought.
Gotcha. Now, let me ask you, are you self-taught, Aven?
Yeah. Yeah, I did get one course. Excuse me. I did get one course from a person I respect. His name's Danichi Lasuli, and he has a lot of extensive data in the Golden Dawn and whatnot. And so I wanted to learn from somebody who has done the initiatory work. And so I did a course with him, and that's where I picked up a lot of my Kabbalic study. And everything in terms of decans, I had already self-taught myself after, like prior to that. So when I went to his class, I was just like, whoa, I got this. Like, this guy is like, he spent years in this, and I'm like, I know what he's saying. Like, whoa, and oh, I could see where he slipped right there. That was a, no, not to call him out, just saying like, sometimes we say words and the words get jumbled. So I could catch when he would like jumble his words and say something in the wrong order, and I'm like, oh, but I know that's not the right order, and I'd be able to pick it up, and then we correct it, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So it was great for me to receive that confirmation as well as to extend into an area in Kabbalah, which I did not have. Like, I didn't know the Hebrew alphabet at all. So I learned all about that from him.
Wow. How did you get started with your studies? I mean, did you just pick up a book, or look, if somebody that's listening to this says, I'm really intrigued and I really want to do this, but it's, astrology and tarot can seem overwhelming because there's a lot to it. Do you have a course that you started with that you recommend?
I went to Barnes and Noble when I was like a little, and I just picked up a book that like was how to draw your own birth chart, and it came with these little like reusable plastic sheets that you could like take a dry erase on and you could chart yourself. And so I did that, and I studied the book, and the book literally told me everything I need to know about charting the charts myself. And I did that, and eventually I got bored with it and was like, well, the dry erase can only get so precise. I need like paper so I can do really thin lines with the ruler and whatnot. But I learned from that, and it was great because it wasn't this thick monster of a book. It was just like, a nice little Barnes and Noble, fun, enjoyable book. And it was an exercise. And then I'd go and meet up with my friends, and I'm like, let me draw your chart for you. And, if I got it wrong, it didn't really matter because, like, I wasn't, like, offering a service that was paid. I was just, like, practicing. And they all knew that. So we were just exploring and having fun. And I'd be like, what do you think about this? And they're like, oh, that makes kind of sense. Now that I think about it, like, yeah, I actually do operate that way. And I'm like, cool. I didn't know. I just went off of intuition with that. And so that was the whole process of it, really stepping into trusting myself and allowing for as many mistakes as were necessary to be made so that I could continue to develop. That was the number one thing I've learned throughout this whole thing is you got to get really good at being wrong. You got to get wrong as much as possible because like otherwise you're keeping yourself inside of this box of rightness, which is very small. When you get wrong, you break the borders of that box, and now you can like really explore, oh wait, if that's wrong, then is this wrong? And then you start to open up this expanded awareness. So in terms of tarot, you just pick up a deck and go. All right. If you just feel a deck, you're at a cult shop and they've got like this thing and it's just speaking to you and you're like, wow, what is this Robin Hood tarot deck? And you pick it up and you go home with it. You just go with it. Whatever. You pick up a card and the card's got a dove on it and you're like, oh, what do I think about doves? And you start journaling and you start deciding what the card means for you. You don't need to learn anything about tarot to learn about yourself. Like the tarot is not, you don't need to know what the cards are to know who you are. The cards are going to tell you what you're looking at, what you're seeing, what you're thinking, how you're reflecting, what your process is. And so getting that, just doing a practice with that, that is going to be so much healthier than trying to figure out the specifics of the card. After you have a deeper understanding of who you are, then you can explore the cards because you're so solid and anchored down that learning about a card is not going to change anything that you are unsure about in yourself. You're going to be able to see that, you're going to explore that, and you're like, let me see how that shows up in a life event. And it makes it so much more enjoyable and so much more fun versus trying to grab a book, research, study. If that's your jam, that's your jam. But you want to have fun with this too.
Yeah. And do you recommend too that for people that are getting started, that are exploring this aspect and these modalities, to begin journaling so that you can see kind of like, you see a pattern and then you go live your life and you can always go back in hindsight and see
Yeah.
where that showed up?
Yeah, I recommend there's two courses that I recommend for beginners in tarot. Okay. The first course is one card a day if you have the time. If it's one every other day, whatever. Just figure out your schedule, one card a day. Write down what you get out of that card that day, that moment. Like the card is showing me a hand and that hand has a cup and that cup is overflowing. Okay, what is an overflowing cup? I feel like that's this. Okay, what does that mean for me? And like learn how to see that that's a reflection of you. Just write it all down. Just write it all down. This is just your intuitive process. There's no wrong, there's no right. It's just you writing it down, whatever it is. You can do voice recordings if that's better. Then at the end of the day, or before you do your next card the next day, review on how that showed up in real life and go back to the page where you wrote down and just say, oh, it was interesting because I noticed this happened, which was almost exactly how I was feeling when I was looking at this card. And you can start to take A, the point of observation, and B, the actual occurrence of what you're observing, and you can put them together. Now you're creating connections between the parts of your brain that can perceive what's coming and the part of your brain that's actually experiencing the event. You can create that connection. It makes it more immediate for you. The next thing that I say is if you want to just learn the card, not necessarily practicing the self-reflection thing, but just learn the cards, then you just sit with a card a week. Sit with a card a week. Pick your card, that's your card, and you write it down. And every single day for a week, you just write down, how did this card show up in my life? Every day, and you're just reflecting on it, and it's interesting because it's just one card, but you're going to start to see that one card is very, very multidimensional, and it's not all of a sudden you're like, wait, there is a little leaf here on the wand that I didn't notice, and it's shaped kind of like triskelion or something. You're starting, what's a triskelion? Okay, let me look that up. You're starting to find all these hidden itty bitty like details in the card that now when you go and do a reading, you've got an entire week of deep diving in this card, and you can just intuitively pick out one moment out of that week, but it's already so packed with your personal experience that it's going to mean much more than if you just had pulled a deck of cards and shuffled a card and pulled a card out and you're like, oh yes, yellow colors with red. Okay, no, you have a personal experience now. You have a memory, you have a data in your library that you can extrapolate from.
That is incredible. And it kind of pinged me when you were talking about being able to identify it and connect the dots. And what I find fascinating is that you also work with plant medicine, and not to say
Yes,
that you need to work with plant medicine to be able to have these sort of connection points, but do you feel that working with plant medicine helps with these connection points, especially when you're deep diving into your own chart and using tarot? How is that connected for you?
absolutely. 100%. So like when I started tarot, straight edge, don't touch anything, don't do nothing. Stayed that way until I was like 20 years old. Just did not believe that there was any benefit from having any altering substance of any form whatsoever. And then I started exploring them and quickly realized I was coming from a very limited point of view. And so I started creating a spiritual practice where all of my friends were in a practice of party. I was like the oddball that was like, what does this mean? Like, ooh, I'm like reflecting on everybody else is like getting, weird. And I'm just like over here like, I'm noticing a subtle energy right now. So I'm just like diving into this plant that's like, oh wow, did you know that feeling? And what is that feeling? Wow, that is something more than what I'm normally aware of. So yes, the plant medicine has the ability to almost pinpoint different parts that are already occurring. It's nothing you don't have. That's the number one rule, right? Whatever you experience with plant medicine, fungi medicine, whatever you experience with that, everything's already available. It's just giving you an easier access point because you're actually giving yourself the time since you're working with the plant medicine. So,
Mm.
and there's a balance to it, right? There is an overuse where it becomes a crutch, and then there's a moderate use where it's literally a ritual, a ceremony. We're not out here making rituals every 30 minutes of our day because we're trying to ritual something into our life. right? We're okay, this is my special ritual time. I'm ready to access the greater aspect of consciousness, or we're ready to integrate some unconscious things and, you know, really transmute them into be foundational things versus trigger points. The plant medicine, in accordance with tarot, I'm 100% about that, because you can get past uh, whatever you're afraid of by walking right through it. So, we mention particular plant medicines on here? Is that something we
Sure.
can do?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna say straight off, psilocybin is the one. Like, psilocybin is like the in regards to what it does to your brain, it all the different parts of your brain, when you're going through life in survival mode, they start to kind of separate and they stop interacting with each other as much. So psilocybin has this really amazing thing that it does where it connects the different aspects of our brain and gives more connectivity, more connections. So now you can use highways of consciousness that were previously just blocked off. It's not that you don't have them, it's just that you blocked them because they were not considered important in your everyday life due to continuous conscious habits and patterns. So here comes psilocybin, and psilocybin says, no, sit down. We're going to give you full access, and you're going to sit with this right now. And you're like, whoa. And, you know, sometimes it's silly, sometimes it's childish. And that's really great because you're getting this lightness, this release of tension. And that tension, believe it or not, that's what's blocking the highways. So when you get that really silly, childish, like, woo, this is goofy. Oh my gosh, what's going on? All of a sudden, you're making choices in a more effective way because you have all these greater aspects of consciousness connected inside of you. So, um, I think psilocybin is by far the greatest medicine to work with. Other ones like cacao is great. Uh, Cacao is a great heart opener. So if you want to know how to like get more into your heart space and be more sensitive about your feelings, cacao is great for that. I personally don't use marijuana too much. It's too mentally stimulating for me, but at one point it was really great in regards to pain relief and trauma so that I could actually get into a more comfortable space. But it's not my medicine anymore. Um, and then the more intense medicines are like mescaline, ayahuasca, combo. Yeah, those are for sure esoteric practices. Like
Yeah.
100%. There's no denying it. And anybody that does them knows it 100%. Like they get right in. Wow, I'm having a conversation with myself as the divine right now. There's no excuses in that space. There's no You can't dismiss it. It's very
Yeah.
loud. It's very obvious, and it changes you forever and ever and ever. So that's what esoteric practice is, right? Study of
Mhm.
what's within.
Yeah.
So when you're using that kind of plant medicine, studying what's within, it changes everything that's around you because what's within, the foundation, the core, your essence is so evolved that now your reality around you has to follow that evolution as well.
Wow. And just to point out that I do believe and feel that we are the medicine, we are everything, and it's just a tool. So, we're not
Yeah.
promoting this on the channel. Plant medicine, if you're drawn to it, it's a very effective tool. Myself, I have used 5-MeO DMT on a couple of journeys to kind of to get to where you're at. Where you're talking about is just kind of breaking the veil, piercing, whatever blocks or areas that I felt like I needed support with. So I feel like, when the medicine calls to you, and I feel like it will call to you, and then when you can integrate it into your practices with either tarot or astrology or your deep gnosis practices, I think it's such a beautiful tool. And again, it's not for everybody, but if you're called to
Right.
it, it can be life changing and transforming in ways that I would have never been able to imagine. And you kind of have to step into it, but it is a calling and it's an exploration. And you're more of a teacher now with this art form. Do you take your students onto this journey as well? Like, how, when your classes, how do you teach this style of integration and gnosis with the people that you work with?
So I like to create like a structure that's very straightforward. And so there's different levels of teaching this in regards to tarot, in regards to planetary stuff and signs. The If we're gonna just do a quick run through it, we're just going to focus on the evolution from one card to another, right? Which is the evolution from one planet to a sign, or one sign to another sign, etc. So we'd be talking like in the beginning with the full, we have the ether of air. So the ether of air is the first baptism in the tarot. So there's three baptisms in the major arcana, and the first baptism is of spirit and of air. So if you think of a baptism, it's like a complete cleansing. It's like a realignment. It's washing what is not you away. And the fool has this very aloof nature. He's just kind of wandering and about ready to step off a cliff. Why? Because he's already like completely cleansed himself of needing to know any structured mental thing. And so he has cleansed himself. He has gone through this baptism. And the only way that that can happen is through the embodiment of pure and true abundance. Okay. So like after we would totally embody that card in my class, we would completely, everybody's on the same page. Any questions, feedback? Okay. What is everybody at? After we embody that card, then we move into the next card, the magician, and we see how the abundance of the fool becomes the foundation of the magician who can create reality. Right. And we'll move
Wait,
step
let
by
me go
step.
back to that. You're saying that we have to tap into the energy of abundance first before we start creating it through the full.
Yes.
Oh,
And so
okay.
this is actually a ceremony. It's actually a ritual. It's an initiation. So when you go through the first 22 major arcana, you're getting access to the 22 keys. They're keys. They open every door. Okay. So having like it's like by the time you get to the last card, somebody's just handed you a ring of keys and you're just walking away in life, but you now have these 22 keys of energetic embodiments that you just experienced, and you know how to go from one to the next. So maybe you don't know how to go straight to chariot energy, but you know how to go from abundance of the fool to creator of the magician to the receptive, intuitive, perseverant nature of the high priestess, etc., all the way till you get to the chariot. So you may have to start at the fool every time and get that baptism, that cleansing, just so you can get to the chariot's energy to bring that into your life. But you have it. And that's the whole point of the class. Is it's not even really about tarot. The tarot is just the surface expression of it. Truly what's happening is we're teaching technology. It's a spiritual technology.
Wow, that is deep. That is profound. And I want to take the class. My goodness gracious, that sounds incredible. And how, I mean, is this a continuing journey with your students? I mean, how long is the class in the program where you begin this initiation and you go through the minor tarot? And that's one question. And then the second question is, what is kind of the major, because I've heard of the major arcana and the minor arcana, and what's the difference there? So kind of a two-part question. I hope I didn't confuse you with that, but I'm just
No,
so.
no. So I actually generally teach these classes in community gatherings.
Okay.
And it's just kind of like when it occurs, I'm like, okay, this is that, and I kind of feel it out. And however, I am currently creating more of a, oh my gosh, what is that word? A syllabus? Is that the word I'm thinking of?
Yep.
Syllabus? Okay,
Mhm.
yeah. A schedule, right? I'm currently creating a schedule because I do want to cultivate an ongoing practice for students who do want to dedicate to the long-term mission. But that one first course, that 22 keys like open course, is so massive. Even if I take 2 hours to do that, like that's just you could spend 2 years of your life processing that, unless you already have that in the books. If you already got that in your data, then like you're definitely ready to go beyond that. And your second question was
About the major and the minor arcana.
right.
And why do you
So,
start with the major and then go into the minor? What's the difference there?
so it's the major secrets and the minor secrets. Okay, so it's the major secrets of life and the minor secrets of life. So the major arcana, these are there's 22 of them. There's 22 as a master builder, right? 22 keys to the major secrets of life. The minor arcana is going to be composed of the ace through 10 of each suit, as well as the court cards, the page, knight, queen, king. So the minor arcana, the best way I can describe this, oh my gosh, okay, it's so easy. The major arcana card is a word. It's a word. It has a very straightforward archetypal energy. Okay. The minor arcana, aces through tens, they're more like a sentence they have a combination of two of the major arcanas, or sometimes three or four. So they have more than just one archetypal energy working together. So it's more so like an interaction of the primary archetypes, right? And then the court cards are a paragraph. It's a lot. It's combination of the minors, which is a combination of the majors. So it's like the court cards, a lot of people struggle with the court cards, and they have to figure out how to identify them as people so that they can understand it, because they're just really complex beings. Just to give an example of a court card, we'll look at the Queen of Cups. The Queen of Cups is Cancer's court card.
Mhm.
So she is, oh, I actually have it here.
Beautiful.
So you have a throned woman holding a chalice, but this chalice is more like a trophy, right? And the symbology, and she's on a little island in the water. So right away you've got someone emotional, someone who trophies emotion, trophies the container of emotion, who's staring at it, very focused on it. That's just the symbology of the card, and there's so much more to that. In astrology, you have 3 decans. You have the 2 and the 3 of cups, and the 10 of swords is her shadow decan. So each one of those 3 decans, those 3 cards, are composed of 2 major arcanas. So she has a lot of major arcana energies that are kind of alchemizing together to create her personality.
Wait, what's
So
the
that's
shadow
why.
decan? What's that? I've never heard of that term, shadow decan. What's that?
Okay, so in the court cards, they pick up the first 2 decans of their sign. So the first decan 1 and decan 2 of Cancer for the Queen of Cups, and then she picks up the last decan of the sign previous to her as her shadow decan. So it's like the shadowy side of the Queen of Cups. Okay, because like we all have good and bad, dark and light.
Yep.
So so 2 of Cups energy, Venus and Cancer, partnership, value, being able to honor, you have respectable boundaries, and that's what actually creates a union, is like having a very valued boundary. So like a boundary, a circle around us, that's a union, right? And then 3 of Cups is Mercury in Cancer. So Mercury is the house, the mind, and Cancer is like think of a crab, like it has that exoskeleton. It's that
Mhm.
hard exterior to keep the soft stuff safe. The soft stuff inside, the smushy little tenderness of the crab inside, is safe by this really hard exterior. That's like a very Cancerian trait. So that's what we see as the energy archetypically, is you see a very hard boundary that keeps everything that's soft and tender inside safe, keeps it secure. And so when you add Mercury to that, that's the creator space of the magician, right? So it's like you see the 3 of Cups are 3 women coming together, intertwining their arms with a glass of wine, and they're all celebrating together. So they have a clear container for them to come together and have this beautiful, friendly, communicative, mercurial space where they can create together, right? So those are the 2 primary aspects of the Cancer decans for her. And then the shadowy aspect of her would be the 10 of Swords, which is actually a card of Gemini. And the 10 of Swords is like the Lord of Ruin, somebody being betrayed, right? So the Queen of Cups has this tendency to look back on the way things have wronged her. She can look in the past and the way things have ruined her, the way things have hurt her, who's betrayed her, right? That's the shadow of it. But in every single shadow is a deep power, a deep secret power. And the 10 of Swords, the secret power of the 10 of Swords is being able to see that like there is nothing external happening to me. So all the things which I have created in this reality to destroy me, right, are the
Yes.
things I've created in this reality to hit me as hard as possible so that I could be broken down to nothing again, and then use that nothingness that's all scattered about and make an even better embodiment of this being. So we offer the most gratitude to those who have hurt us the most, because those who have hurt us the most have triggered us to be the best. So
Gotcha.
that's where that deep compassion of the Queen of Cups comes from,
Yeah.
having been completely destroyed and hurt.
Yeah.
Oh
Wow.
yeah.
That's so
So but
deep. And it's such a beautiful way to integrate the wisdom of these tools with your own gnosis, with your own healing, with your own awareness and life experiences. I mean, it's incredible and so healing. I mean, this is a way, haven't you experienced like profound healing within yourself just
Yeah.
studying this?
Yes, that's literally why it's 20 years later, and like I've intentionally stepped away from tarot because I've gotten to the point where I was like addicted to readings. Like, what's the next card? What's the next card? What's the next card? I need to know. I need to know. I need to know. Same with astrology. Okay, I've
Yep,
been like, okay, what's today's transit? What's going on with the moon? Is it?
yep.
Oh, what's happening right now? What is that called when the moon's in the weird period? Uh, oh
Phases.
my god. No, the moon's in that period before it changes signs.
Oh, when it's
Anyway,
ingressing or
yeah, I
uh
don't remember what the term is, but
station
it's like that.
direct or I'm trying to
Void
remember.
of course. Void of course.
Void of course. Okay, yes.
Right. So I was obsessed with Void of Course for a long time. So every time Void of Course would happen, I'd be like, okay, I need to make sure I don't do anything that's against Void of Course that day. So I did all of that over and over and over again, and I got to the point where I was just like, look, this is like a medicine. This is a tool. I had to kind of like have a sit down talk with myself and say, you're kind of creating the opposite effect of medicine for you right now. And
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, oh, what do I do with this? Well, are you breathing? Are you centering yourself? Are you listening? Or are
Mm.
you just piling data on data on data on data on data? And like your brain already has enough. Are you using medicine or are you just giving your brain more to spin around in the whirlwind? And so too much, there's like too much, and then there's, not enough, and then there's just right.
Or it
And
becomes mental masturbation, right? Where you're just like, I'm
oh,
just
for sure. You're just like, ooh, what's the next card? You're like, ah. And then like 30 minutes go by and you're like, I think I'm gonna pull another card. You're like, pull another card. They're like, you just got done doing a deep dive into the transits, and now all of a sudden you want to figure out is there something else? And you just spent hours in transits understanding what's happening, but now you're like looking for something else. So there's this point where you come to in esoteric studies where you do have to step away and you have
Mhm.
to actually integrate the medicine.
Yes,
Integrate the medicine. Let it be a remedy, right? Don't
yes,
just keep piling it on. Sit with it. Rest with it.
yeah,
Let it do its core. Do your work. Do your work
yeah,
with it.
yeah. That's such great wisdom and just a great perspective because we, like anything else, it can be overdone. And I myself, I'm very guilty of that, have been overdone, doing exactly what you said, just having this beautiful aha moment with the astrology and the cards or nature or whatever. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I want more, and
Yeah.
it's like, you gotta sit with, let me just have a moment and digest what I just consumed through my eyes, through my ears, through my noses. So yeah, I totally resonate with that. And how do you just a final quick question before we kind of wrap it up here, because there's honestly, I can talk to you for hours, Aven. There's so much that I want to pick your brain with. And I feel such a deep connection, especially with the information you're sharing. There's a lot of resonance here. But for anybody listening now or in the future moment, than every present now time moment, how do you, when you first start working with this, how do you integrate working with the tarot and the astrology on the daily? Like, do you have a daily practice that you do to integrate this, or do you just deep dive all at once and then kind of take some time off? I mean, how do you maneuver it now with your practice?
My modern practice now is I do 3 cards, and it's either once a day or sometimes twice a day. And I have to make sure to pay attention to the energy that I enter the cards with. So if I'm using the cards as a response to stress, I tend to create more stress with the reading. So
Oh,
now I create like a practice moment where I say, okay, all right, I am unsure. It's okay to be unsure. I don't actually know right now, and I'm okay with not knowing. That's actually a good space to be because that means everything's open. Ah, all right. So see, the stress is now like been let go of. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm not worried about not knowing what to do next. All right,
mm,
let's just go and explore the cards now. So instead of creating a reaction space, I allow for a calm period before I pull the cards. And my 3 card process is, I'll shuffle my cards and I cut the deck. And the first card I pull is the subject. So for this reading, I got the 3 of Swords, which is mastery of partnership, communication, swords, mental. Um, and then I got my two other cards that are aspecting the primary subject, which was the Ace of Cups and the Queen of Cups. So my subject for this experience, the subject matter is Three of Swords. Okay, so that's my primary form of focus. The other two aspects are helping me understand how to look into that subject better. Look, Three of Swords with like a Ten of Swords and a Knight of Swords attributing it would have been like, oh my gosh, what am I getting into? But I got Queen of Cups and I got the Ace of Cups on both sides of the Three of Swords. So that's telling me that the Three of Swords is actually a really powerful moment. It's a very healing moment because the same pain that comes from that card is also the same medicine that heals the pain. So it's stepping into the medicine because I have Ace of Cups and Queen of Cups on either side. Cool. That's really good. That makes that Three of Swords so much softer, not so abrasive, very gentle, loving, caring, compassionate. Like, oh, something hurt your heart. Let's go ahead and give love and compassion for that. So that's how I do my daily practice. And now currently I'm not journaling, but when I get into my journaling hyper fixation, I'll literally pull one card a day and I just write everything about that card, and then I'll sit and I'll listen and start channeling, and then I'll just like, start automatic writing whatever's coming through and just let it go. I won't even correct anything. Like if it says the red ball bounced 3 times, fell into the sidewalk, oh, here comes the stoplight, it's green. Like I'll just write it. Like I don't care. I'll just automatic write everything. Then when I go back, I kind of have like a puzzle for myself to solve. And it'd be weird how many times these things have like overlaying messages that like reveal themselves within like hours of that. So the point of me expressing that is don't doubt what comes through. Like trust it in your daily practice. You got to create more trust with yourself. The more trust you have with yourself, that's why we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
Developing a trust with ourselves. You trust in the divine, you trust in yourself. You cannot trust in another, you cannot trust in the divine if you do not trust in yourself. So just trust it. Just trust. You don't have to take action on anything. Just trust what's coming through and give it that the validity. In regards to how I look into astrology, on a regular daily practice, I mostly follow outer planetary things now. So like right now, I'm aware that Jupiter is transiting my 9th house, and in May of next year, it will be going into my 10th house. So I see this year as my learning, mastery, school, education, travel, getting everything that I need, because next year I'm going to be put into the public image more so. Jupiter's going to blow that up for me. So I study the outer planets a lot more and look at long-term projections, because I don't enjoy doing the lunar things as much unless I'm doing like ritual practice, which is, full moon, new moon, stuff like that. So that's primarily how I operate on a daily basis. Just the 3-card pull once or twice, and then keeping in the back of my mind that I always have these outer planets as my primary archetypal energy that I'm moving through.
That's amazing. And it's funny you said about the journaling, and we're in Gemini season right now with the sun in Gemini. So
perfect time. Get on it.
Yeah. Especially for those that are exploring on looking how to do this more and how to create space and start working with these practices, because they're such powerful tools. And Gemini season all about information and learning. So this would be a great time if anybody's interested to start studying these things. And if you want to reach out to Aven and contact him, because he's obviously got so much knowledge and he's so embodied with the knowledge. And this is another point of it too, is I really am so in awe, Aven, of not just your scholarly knowledge of it, but your integrated wisdom and your practice of it on the daily. It's just incredible to witness and watch. And I'm so grateful you said yes to this experience and being on this podcast and sharing your energy, because I know there's going to be people who are looking to explore these tools, because that's what they are. They're tools, just like the medicine, the plant medicine, the cards, knowledge of astrology. It just helps you have a better life, a better understanding of yourself. And so I am so honored that you said yes to this experience. And how can people find you, Aven? How can, because they will be drawn to you when they listen to this, how do you, how can they connect with you?
So my Instagram handle is esoteric arborist, ESOTERICARBORIST. And that's where I kind of just dump everything, and my art, my family stuff, and my tarot and astrology. I just put it all in there consistently. If you want to reach out to me, you can send me a message there. Just mention that you saw this podcast. And then I do one-on-one private tutoring. I also do personal one-on-one readings. My primary focus, like what I enjoy the most, is I enjoy being able to step into a workspace where there's, 30, 40 people, 20 people, or if you want to get together, a small community gathering. And I'd be able to put out so much more content when there's multiple people around, because there is this really unique energy when there's more than one person. Everybody starts to feed each other, and we all start to like fill each other's cups. And there's a way that I work with that that's way more rewarding. So I do offer the one-on-one, but where I can offer you the most is in small groups and community settings. So
I just have to know, if you don't mind sharing, what is your sun, moon, and ascendant?
okay, so in Western astrology, I am in Aquarius conjunct North Node in Sun, Aquarius Sun conjunct North Node in the sixth house. Leo rising, and I'm a Gemini conjunct Jupiter Gemini moon conjunct Jupiter in the 11th house. So in Vedic, I am a Leo rising, Gemini moon, but a Capricorn sun. So, but another really strong component is I have 6 planets in Western. I have 6 planets in Capricorn in my 5th house.
Oh, wow.
So in Vedic, it's in Sagittarius in the 5th house. So if you think about it, I have the 6 planets on the 5th house and the 2 planets in the 11th house. So I have 8 planets on one axis.
Yes. I was wondering, because you kept talking about groups and communities, and I was wondering, I'm like, I wonder if he's got Aquarius, because I primarily study Western astrology. So I was just curious. I said, I know he's got to have Aquarius somewhere, or 11th house configuration somewhere. So yeah,
The moon
thank you.
conjunct Jupiter in the 11th for sure. Like having moon and Jupiter conjunct in the 11th house is like everything's blowing up all the time. So, and for me to give and for others to give to me, that's just, that's where it's the most effective. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for
what is
giving your
yours?
time. Oh, my sun. Well, my sun in Western astrology, I don't know my Vedic. I'm not versed with that, but my sun, Scorpio, moon Scorpio, and rising Sagittarius. Sun and sun in 11th house, and my moon and my Mercury actually in Scorpio in the 12th house with rising Sag.
Ooh.
So yeah.
12th house.
Yeah.
I got my South Node in the 12th house, so
You
I
get
gotta be
it.
careful not to spend too much time there. 12th house, South Node versus having your planets in that's a totally different thing. South Node is like you can get trapped there really quick.
Yeah. And we've got
Especially
right
the 12th
now.
house.
Yeah. And maybe in the future you can come on the podcast again, and we can go deep diving and maybe into the house structure. And because I really feel like I want to pick your brain. There's just so much depth and wisdom that I feel coming from you. I would love to have you on the podcast again, maybe at some other time that we can explore, more of these concepts. So Aven, thank you for taking your most valuable asset, which is your time, to be on this podcast, to share your energy and your wisdom. I am so grateful that you said yes to this experience. And thank you everybody here watching. Whenever you tune into this, there is so much depth to this conversation, and I'm excited about having you here again. So this is an invitation to come back. And thank you again, everybody, for listening, for watching. And Aven, many blessings to you. I am so excited to see where you go with your teachings and with your classes. And I am so drawn to taking your class. So are you in Florida? Are you located in Florida now? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Central Florida. I mostly go around Tampa, St. Pete, that kind of area. A little bit further north, but that's where I end up being all the time. So it's just that community is what calls me.
I'm just curious, do you offer any online community projects that you do for anybody maybe that's overseas or in other countries that they can reach out to you?
I can do that 100%. If somebody has, like, just like you're doing this podcast right now, like if somebody has the ability to create that and create their own event and they want to reach out to me to set that up, then I'm more than willing to do that. So 100% available for any kind of community settings. That seems to be the thing that keeps calling to me. So yes.
It's good to know. Well, thank you. Thank you for that wisdom. And thank you again for just being who you are and sharing your gifts. This has been such a great joy to get to talk to you about things that I love. This is a passion of mine, and we're going to be exploring more of these concepts here on Livzenastrology. So please tune in the channel. I'm on all the social media platforms, and yeah, we'll see you the next time. And thank you again for being here. Many blessings to you,
Thank
Evan.
you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
This is incredible.